Pleasant good morning, everybody. Another week flying by here. Jeff DeForest, Mike Lubie Lubitz, happy to be with you. Another edition of the morning briefing here on NoFilter.net and Caffeine TV. And this is probably not going to be a popular opinion, but I do have to get this off my chest, Lubie. Is that all right? Can I vent in an area that doesn't involve the sporting world for just a second? Although these particular spots, they're not really commercials. They're more like public service announcements. I guess the obligation of certain stations, they don't have anything commercially to play, so they go ahead and they donate the 30 seconds to some charitable effort, which is usually very noble and an endeavor that's worth pursuing and even worth considering donating your money to. But it depends on the presentation a little bit, doesn't it, Libby? And for some reason, this spot is haunting me. It's this Cars for Kids thing where you donate your car. Have you seen this thing?
Years
Have
ago,
you heard it?
Is it still going on? The Cars for Kids. I haven't seen
1-800.
that still exists. Well, I haven't heard that for
What
years.
is that? Is that some kind of scam? I'm beginning to fear that it has to be a scam. Otherwise, nobody could persist in trying to annoy you with this commercial, which is the most hideous, haunting. I mean, it's right up there with coming home from Disney World and having your 3 and 5-year-old kids in the back seat screaming, "It's a small world after all." You can't get it fucking out of your head. It's stuck there. I'm almost tempted. I have a 2018 Tiguan with low mileage on it, about 45,000 miles, because nobody drives anymore, right? Remember? We used to bust up 20,000 miles just driving back and forth to work every day. And now you don't have to deal with that. So your car is going to last a lot longer. This 2018 normally would be considered an older car. It's like brand spanking new. It still smells like a new fucking car. But I am about to donate it, not so that these charitable places can make good use of the money, but so they'll take this ad off the air. That's all I want them to do. I just want them to scrub the ad. Whatever the proceeds are for this car, I'll even throw in my other car. I mean, you're tempted to just get the keys to your car and drive it into a brick wall so you don't have to hear this ad anymore. I'm sure it's a worthy cause. I don't mean to denigrate anybody's efforts to help out kids that are in need. I'm a huge advocate for all of that, but they have to do something about this commercial, do they not? It's right up there. Now, almost all news shows, and I'm a big fan of watching network news shows. And I watch a little CNN, which also features this. The girl's not even playing the drums, man. She's not even hitting the drums. How unrealistic is this? They're totally out of rhythm. Nobody's even anywhere near the time signature or the beat or any kind of rhythm in this song. And you're watching this and thinking, my God, these kids really do need some fucking help. But I don't know that I'm going to respond to that until they change the nature of the ad. But the other one is you see this ad for everything's about some new drug that's going to help you out. And they always come with the disclaimers that feature hideous warnings while being mumbled. And they take up about half the ad about the side effects and the possible negative implications of taking this drug on a regular basis. Meanwhile, the woman is walking through a field of butterflies and she's blowing bubbles, walking a little puppy on a rope because she just took 2 pills and got over lifelong depression. Incredible. But the Jardiance ad, have you seen that? Jardiance, I believe it's a diabetes medication. And they got this big fat chick who gets off a train and immediately is leading 25 to 30 people in singing songs about how wonderful the effects are of Jardiance. And I'm thinking the last time I saw a drug like that was when we had Dennis Rodman. Remember we had Rodman on the show when we were doing shows at that Bamboo Beach Tiki Bar right on the beach here in Fort Lauderdale? Dennis Rodman used to hang out there and he was like gargling with Goldschlager. He was pretty much out of his mind the entire time. And one night he comes on our show and I've never seen a guy happier in my life. And I thought, whatever drug this guy's on, I want some of that.
Yes.
I don't know that Jardiance gives you that kind of a feeling, but you would assume that it just was a key to happiness, that as soon as you started guzzling a bunch of Jardiance pills out of this bottle, that you were going to be happy and your diabetes was going to disappear or would get to the point where you just didn't fucking care about possible complications and the implications of having this hideous disease. Unbelievable. All right. So we have to get rid of that. Now, to get to the day in sports, Louis, fantastic. All kinds of great stuff going on. My favorite golf tournament of the year happens to be the Tournament Players Championship. It even eclipses, hello, friends. Now, we all know that there's an element of phoniness, an element of fraud to every Masters presentation. First of all, Arnie Palmer, when he was 90 years old, could have never made it all the way around the course. So they didn't show you the 16 holes in between the time he teed it off on number 1. And then they got a guy kind of carrying him around the course there. And when he finally came home in 18 with like 107, and everybody said, please don't torture Arnie anymore. Don't make him play in the Masters. Now he checked out. So, I mean, are they going to drag his dead body around? I don't know that they would even stop short of doing something like that just to preserve their tradition. A tradition like no other.
Yes.
And by the way, Jim Nantz has to be hearing footsteps, right? Did you hear Ian Eagle the other day when he was on our show? And he actually started out by saying, hello, friends.
No, I mean, someone's going to have to do it. He's already the guy for the Final Four.
He's out. Right.
I mean,
Super Bowls, that's going to be it for Nantz.
Yeah,
and now you have to think that Ian Eagle will be going, Tiger for par.
Exactly. I don't
know. How hard is that? Anybody could do that. You could do this job, Lubie. Tiger for bogey.
Golf's not.
Being very, very simple. But Tournament Players Championship has the one hole that everybody loves, and that is a hole that is completely surrounded by water. The island hole is fantastic. There's nothing better because we love to see these guys who never miss a shot, who show no emotion whatsoever. They hit shots that you could never even conceive of dreaming about, where you go to the driving range and every ball is perfect, and then all of a sudden you get out there on a course and you can't hit shit, man. You're ricocheting shots off of trees that didn't even get involved in the line of play of the shot that you're trying to hit. You're hitting balls into people's condominium balconies, all kinds of crazy shit. That's what really goes on in golf. So to see the pros, the best in the game, humbled and brought to their proverbial knees by the conditions of one simple hole. How long is this hole, Lubie? Is it like 135 yards? I don't even think it's a particularly long shot. It's one thing you see the pros on the PGA Tour and you go, oh, here's a par 3, 287 yards. They'll be using 4-iron off the tee. You're like, what the fuck? Who could hit a 4-iron that far? Who could hit a 4-iron anywhere? Remember the great line by Lee Trevino? Not even God could hit a 1-iron, right? When he was holding up a 1-iron and he just missed getting hit by a bolt of lightning. And that was his comment. It was fantastic. But this particular hole is treacherous because even the slightest mistake, and you find yourself in the agua. It's agua caliente, my friend. So it's a very humbling hole. What we're trying to figure out here, a winner. Is it possible to pick a winner in this tournament, Lubie? Because let's face it, the fields, if there is any impact of the Live Tour, it is that the fields are missing any number, like at least a half a dozen illustrious names that you would normally consider had possibilities of winning any PGA event, including some of the latest defections that involve John Rahm and others who have gone on. I mean, the original wave included Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka. These are guys that were always prominent in these events. And it was good for the better because they would soak up a lot of the lower odds and provide you an opportunity to maybe make a score with some guy that wasn't as well known, but that you thought was sitting in a favorable position to have a positive result in a tournament of this nature. I'm trying to convince myself, this is what I'm trying to do right here in the show, Lubie. I'm trying to convince myself to drop maybe $100 on Will Zalatoris.
Oh, Zalatoris.
Will Zalatoris to win the Tournament Players Championship. Is that a mistake? Now, he's shaved off all of that scraggly long hair that set him apart from the rest of the golfers on the tour. The guy weighs about $135 soaking wet, and he's like 6'4", skinny as a rail. I mean, you're thinking yourself, you don't know whether to scream, hey, make that putt, or somebody give this guy a sandwich. But Zalatoris, he had a favorable showing recently in a tournament. He kind of faded in the late going. And looks like he's primed to get his game back. He was out with injuries last year, kind of compromised his entire season. Can we place a stick on Will Zalatoris anywhere from 22 to 25 to 1 to win the Players' Championship, Lubie? Or, and this is the horrifying thing about betting golf. Golf is a great bet, by the way, because if you're in contention with your guy, you get 4 days of just insane action.
Yep.
To the point where you're even watching the stuff on Golf Channel that comes on at 6 in the morning in the fog. Because it's important to you, especially if you're in one of these golf pools that involves multiple players. It's important to you what some guy does that is on the cusp of missing the cut, which is the most prohibitive thing that could possibly happen to you in a golf pool. Now, if you're betting individuals, the last thing you need to see is you finally turn on your bet. Oh, yeah, isn't golf on? Let's see. How's Zalatoris doing? And he's already 4 over after 3 holes.
Yep.
And you just want to jump out of a window, hopefully from a very high floor, right? So, we'll see what happens. It's an exciting event. I think it has been diminished some. And what happened to the people on the Live Tour? Are they on the side of milk cartons now? Where is Greg Norman? Has anybody seen Greg Norman? since the Live Tour finally made this quasi or whatever supposed merger with the PGA, and yet none of that has transpired. Two people you don't see anymore, John Monahan and Greg Norman.
Exactly.
What did Norman do? I mean, did he just get involved with the wrong people, do you think? Has anybody seen him? I have legitimate concerns about the whereabouts of one Greg Norman.
Well, yeah, he was in the middle of all of it, and then you haven't seen him for like a year.
Where the fuck is this guy? It's incredible. Greg! Where is he? I don't know. Big game tonight, Big East Tournament. It's actually this afternoon. You know, we've been following this story since it first evolved, where you were going to have the great Rick Pitino coaching at St. John's. Holy Luke Harnaseca. He's even got the sweater. He's wearing the white outfits again. His team was in the shitter. They had lost 8 out of 10. Looked like all hopes were lost for making the big dance, which was one of the stated goals. They got to bring St. John's back to the NCAA tournament. They have a game today in the Big East tournament against Seton Hall. Holy PJ Carlissimo. What are we talking about here, Lubie? Against Seton Hall, and I believe if St. John's wins this game, they're going to the NCAA tournament.
Oh, wow.
No, they don't have to win the Big East tournament to qualify. They won 5 in a row to close out the year, including over the Big East proverbial punching bag now, Georgetown, which is hard to imagine, but they are that bad. And so they have to beat Seton Hall today, supposedly to qualify under all of the Joe Lunardi things, which Joe Lunardi is morphing. Doesn't he look like Vito Antifermo at this point after the Hagler fight? Like his face is just beaten in, like he's been hit in the head too many times. This happens to those guys, right? Mel Kiper, he lost all the hair. At one time, he was gargling with moose. He looked spectacular. Now, he looked like Prince coming out on stage. Now he looks like a balding old schlub who, hey, I don't know, this guy looks like a third-round pick. It's happening to Lunardi, isn't it? I think that's a mistake of people that choose that path where they're going to be an expert on something that really nobody knows what the outcome is actually going to be, and nobody cares because during the course of the season, you say so many things. Who the hell could determine whether or not you were accurate or not, right? I mean, would you know if Lunardi was right about any of this shit? I would think not. And the basic essence of the bracketology is the teams at the top are pretty much of a shoo-in. You have those pretty fairly mapped out for, I would say, a relatively long period of time during the course of the season. Has there been that much change in the top 10 teams, Lubie, in college basketball? I would think not. But it's the weenie teams at the bottom that we're concerned about. And Lunardi's ready to blow his brains out trying to figure out what the hell to do with these guys, including some of the qualifiers that got in last night. And I love this whole list of schmink teams that we have. Stetson, Longwood, Drake, Morehead State. I keep confusing James Madison with George Mason. Have you noticed that, Louie? Thank you for not correcting me on that.
Well, when you just, the only thing
I think I had him in the Final Four with Jim Larinaga.
You were confusing them with. You just kept saying they made that run to the Final Four. And
there was no Final Four.
It must have been years ago.
Because it must have been in
like the 70s or something. Like
1908.
I didn't know who you were talking. I knew James Madison this year was good in football randomly, and now they've been good for a couple of years in basketball.
Unbelievable. Yeah, but it was George Mason, of course.
Final Four. Okay, well,
schools that are named after people. Is George Mason an actual guy, or is that like some reference to a geographical destination?
He wasn't like a president.
Yeah. All right, so you got James Madison, you got Samford, you got South Dakota State. St. Mary's, of course, is a team that people are familiar with out of the West Coast Athletic Conference. Charleston, Oakland, and Wagner. They get in. McNeese also got in. Is that not McNeese State? Is there a McNeese State also?
They were McNeese State.
They just dropped the state? They're no longer part of this country? They just went independent?
A lot of times schools will either add a state or remove a state.
They seceded from the
Memphis
state.
Memphis used to be Memphis State, and now it's Memphis.
All right. So, McNeese gets in there. Weenie teams, right? We're going to have to make a decision on that at some point. But all eyes will be on the Big East tournament today.
Nice.
See if our man Rick Pitino can get involved and get to the NCAA tournament. His stated goal before the season started, where they would be somewhere in the neighborhood, and this seems a little bit low, doesn't it, of like 40-1 to win the tournament or make the Final Four. 40-1 to make the Final Four. But would you take 40-1 on St. John's, who is barely alive? That they have to beat a team that they're only favored by 4 points to beat today, I think, to qualify. Otherwise, they get into that great debate, probably the greatest debate that you could ever have and incur in your lifetime, whether or not to accept a bid to the lowly NIT. Nah, we don't want to go and play in that shit. Forget about it. What happened to the spirit of college athletics? You just want to play. All right, a lot of good stuff happening. We'll see what happens. Will Zalatoris at 25-1. I want to take him to win the Tournament Players Championship. We'll see if that thing turns out to be any good. By tomorrow, we'll be face down in the mud reacting to that. And we're going to be pulling for St. John's to win their game over Seton Hall in tribute to Rick Pitino, which, by the way, Louisville job open. We were speculating, where's our guy Dusty May going to end up from Florida Atlantic University? Is it possible he takes that gig? That looks like a rough spot, though.
It's been a mess lately, and it hasn't gone well.
Did this guy really go, Perry? Did he really go 6-52?
Is that possible? I know the last 2 years they've been dreadful. So
that's like 3-26 for 2 years. Is that possible? How could you be that bad?
They've been really bad.
My God, that's such ugliness. All right, we have to run. We'll have a Degenerate Friday show for you tomorrow. A lot of interesting things happening, including leading up to Selection Sunday, where we'll morph into Joe Lenardi. He really is looking bad, isn't he? He looks like Colonel Kurtz in Apocalypse Now in that final scene with the blood on his face. Unbelievable. All right, we'll see you tomorrow on the next edition here on NoFilter.net and Caffeine TV. For Mike Lubie Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest. Thanks for tuning in to today's edition of the Morning Briefing.